Nice little warm up here. Good evening, Michigan City, Indiana. And thank you all for coming to another exciting meeting of the Michigan City Redevelopment Commission. We have an exciting 24-item agenda, which I'm pretty confident we can get through here maybe in an hour. So let me start off by suggesting that everyone's present with the exception of Mayor Muir, our commissioner, and also our school representative, Teresa Edwards. So, and Mr. Cernak, you might comment a little bit about our executive session.
There was an executive session immediately before this meeting. No items were discussed that would be in violation of the open door law, and no decisions were made.
Thank you. Approval of claims for April. I'm sorry, let's jump to item 3. Approval of minutes first for the executive session on March 5th and regular meeting on March 5th and special meeting on March 20th.
I'd move to approve the executive session minutes of March 5th, the regular meeting minutes of March 5th, and the special meeting of 3/20.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. Item 4, approval of claims for April. Mr. Phillips.
Give me 1 second to pass these minutes on to our secretary. Okay, you should have a claims docket in front of you dated April 8th, 2019. On that, you'll note standard payroll items for February and March of 2019. Claims to the operating fund include a payment to Great American Financial for copier fees for March of 2019, Alan Cernak for monthly retainer for March of 2019. Claims to the North TIF fund include payments to Blue Shadley, Racher, and Braun for costs related to the Environmental Cost Recovery Project, Trail Creek Properties Investigation, and 1002, property located within the North TIF district. Claim to American Structure Point for ongoing costs related to the US 12 over Trail Creek project for January and February of 2019. Payment to LaPorte County Appraisal for appraisal of a property located within the North TIF district. John Doyle and Associates for project administration and inspection costs related to the Pine Street Luxury Apartments project. Aegis Environmental for Phase 1 environmental site assessment and title search for property located within the North TIF district. Fidelity National Title for property title search for property located within the North TIF district. Gary Construction for pay application number 4 for construction regarding the West Parking Lot project at Washington Park. Hitchcock Design Group for ongoing costs related to the double track streetscape design project for February of 2019. RG Development of Michigan City, or RG Development of MC LLC for parcel acquisition related to the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 project. Michigan City Sanitary District for payment related to the memorandum of understanding for the, it says ELA, but it's Pine Street Luxury Apartments. Sewer Capacity Study. SCH of Indiana for costs related to the Washington Park Entry Traffic Circle project for February of 2019. Hitchcock Design Group for costs related to the Civic Plaza Preliminary Design Services contract for March of 2019. Alan Cernak for legal services in the North TIF for March of 2019. Stanhope Consulting for costs related to the Civic Plaza Public Outreach project. Environmental Incorporated for additional testing related to property located in the North TIF district, and Wallach, Summers, and Haas PC for costs related to the Pine Street Luxury Apartments project. It's been called so many things.
I know,
sometimes on here it says Elston's.
We're not consistent.
Sometimes it says Elston's Legacy Now and then Memorial Property. Anyway, it's all related to Pine Street Luxury Apartments project. All right, and then claims to the South TIF. Include payment to Haas and Associates for construction, administration, inspection project costs related to the Ameriplex Drive project. Holiday Property Services for construction management agreement for February and March of 2019. Ameriplex Marquette JV for option payments related to that project for January, February, and March of 2019. Alan Cernick for legal services related to the South TIF for March of 2019. News Dispatch regarding the notice of the property for the notice of property for sale at 6000 South Cleveland, which I will clarify, we are not selling the fire station. There's some confusion apparently about what we're selling. The address of the fire station is 5000 South Cleveland, and unfortunately the county's records on Beacon are incorrect with regard to that. So 6000 South Cleveland is the vacant parcel across the street from the fire station to the west, just to be clear. Global engineering for costs related to the annual evaluation.
And that isn't even a sale of property, that's just a notice.
It's to offer,
Yes.
it's to offer the property up for sale. It's not for the actual sale of the property. I think, yeah, there's been some misinformation and confusion about that aspect of this. So, I'm sorry, and then global engineering, I-94 and 421 overpass for annual evaluation and reporting required to NDOT for that project. Claims to the Ohio Street Construction Fund include pay application for the retainage reduction associated with the Ohio Street project for Reith Riley Construction. American Structure Point for costs related to construction inspection for that project, and Reith Riley Construction Company for pay application number 9 of the construction project. There were no claims to the Wabash Street Fund and no claims to the Northeast TIF Fund. Wow, stumbled through that one.
All right, any questions on the claims docket? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Make a motion to approve the claims docket for April 8th.
Moved and seconded. Okay. I think we got all 3 votes now. So all in favor, signify by saying, oh, but let me ask, is there any questions first? I have one real quick one. The parcel acquisition phase 2 for Singing Sands.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe where that is?
Yeah, so there are a number of parcels associated with the project that need to be acquired for right of way for the trail itself. This is a parcel that is on the south end of property that is currently occupied by Van Air. So it's adjacent to the city's waste ink property. So the Van Air facility on US 12, east of the casino. It's the southern end of that. It's a piece of the southern end of that property that's adjacent to Trail Creek.
Right. Well, we're plodding along on the Singing Sands Trail, and it's nice to own the property that you actually put the trail on top of. So
it's necessary for us to acquire, through negotiations, to acquire a few parcels. When I say parcels, it's slivers of parcels necessary for the trail. And in this case, a little bit of residual that is located between the trail itself and the creek.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on the claims docket? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Let's go on to the financial report.
Okay, you should have balance sheet in front of you dated February 28th, 2019. On that, you'll note assets which include cash. Our operating account currently has a balance of $33,677.41. We should be receiving a distribution into that account also for the 2019 expenses soon.
About that, right?
Yep, and I have looked into that, so it just apparently hasn't hit yet as of this balance sheet.
Okay.
Southside TIF account currently has a balance of $13,476,007.12. The Southside TIF debt reserve account has a balance of $336,308.50. The Southside TIF capital account has a balance of $17,737.53. Again, those other funds that related to the South Side are specific to the Ohio Street project and are required to be set aside as part of the bonding for that project. Those dollars will be used to pay off the first payments of the, upon completion of the project, notification that we're closing out the fund for the project. Those funds will be basically allocated towards payments for the project. North End TIF account has a current balance of $4,601,054. The Wabash Street Streetscape Construction account has a balance of $122,343.01. The Wabash Street Streetscape Debt Reserve account has a balance of $216,072.49. Same thing. That's an additional fund related to the Wabash Street Streetscape project, and that second fund will be used to start paying off the Wabash Street fund when the fund is closed out. Northeast TIF account has a balance of $112,960.09. Loans receivable include our loan to the East Side TIF from the operating account of $21,028.49. The county and our portion of the county business loan fund for $133,333, bringing our total loans receivable to $154,361.49. I forgot to mention the total cash above was $18,916,160.15. That brings our total assets to $19,070,521.64.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the balance sheet? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, item number 6. I see Janet Block is in the audience. So this is a request for use of the You Are Beautiful site by the Lebesnick Center for the Arts.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for seeing me. I'm Janet Block from Lebesnick Center, and the request is to use the north end of the You Are Beautiful lot for artist parking during our art festival, August 16th, 17th, and 18th of this year. We've never asked for parking permission there before, but we're not exactly sure what's happening to the land around us, and so we need to prepare properly. So this would be for artists, volunteers, and staff specifically.
So just a couple questions for me, I guess, to kind of help. So this isn't the people typically attending the Arts Fest. This is for the vendors and the artists to use the lot. So less travel in and out, I would believe. Is that correct?
Right. We, even previously, people with trailers have been able to use Blue Chip's lot, but they're under construction. We're hoping that Lighthouse Mall, we will probably end up renting an area there for our patron parking, but these are for people who are loading in and out with their booths. We have, between 80 and 95 vendors every year. So, and it's for the people who come to help volunteer. And we don't see people moving in and out, and we will have to monitor it. We will put people, I don't know if we're going to have to fence some of it, but we do need to make sure that it's kept to artists and staff and volunteers.
I don't know, Al, maybe you can chime in here. There's a kind of a standard form, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I already emailed Steve Hale, our attorney, and him and Alan work out the standard, yes, liability.
We have a standard liability form that we use and other departments use. So.
Yes, and so we will, if that's approved, we will definitely, if today it's approved, we will work on getting that.
All right, so any comments or questions of Janet?
Just so you know, it is, I think you got a map, but it's really like we're looking at where the police station used to sit on that. Mm-hmm. That's where we're...
Yeah, this is not the part within the chains. This is the north side of the...
Yeah, it's the north side of the You Are Beautiful.
Right.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's a huge area. I don't think that we'll use that much.
So what's the pleasure of the commission? Or do you have questions?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Well, that was pretty painless. Well, thank you very much. And obviously, the Art Fest is a huge addition to the community, and we love you coming to us early on to ask for support rather than last minute. So,
no, thank you.
We know it's a challenge to go through the process, but we're trying to make it as easy as possible.
No, we appreciate it, and I'm sure you'll all be coming in with tickets.
Well, for sure. Thank you.
We want to adjust the agenda at this time to take a
Yes,
look at
let's do
the
that,
Michigan City Main
please.
Street Association request for use of
So
property.
I see Abby May here in the stands, or I'm sorry, the audience.
Just so she doesn't have to wait till the end of the meeting.
It's a similar request.
Thank you for moving me on the agenda. I appreciate it. So I'm Abby May. I'm with the Michigan City Main Street Association, and we host the Swale Music Festival on June 8th in Westcott Park. We're excited to be able to use the park and set an example for how it can continue to be used for good programming, but parking does pose a challenge, and we were hoping that we would be able to use some of the RDC property to make it a little bit easier for people to attend the event. So our request is to be able to utilize the land between Michigan Boulevard and Pine Street between 5th and 6th, there over by Westcott Park. We understand that there are a couple parcels of land on that area that are owned by another individual, and those would be clearly roped off and made sure that nobody would be able to touch that space. We would have someone directing parking and traffic going in and off of the property to make sure that everything went smoothly. And we are coordinating with the police department to make sure that people have a safe entry and exit to the park going across the boulevard. And we would fill out the form that you require if you approve.
Thank you.
So I have no issues with the request. I just want to remind you, obviously, that we do need to make sure we clearly delineate the parcels that aren't owned by the RDC. And I would recommend that we limit the points of access to the places where there already are kind of curb cuts off of either Cedar or Michigan Boulevard, so that we just don't have people driving across sidewalks or anything like that.
Sure.
But otherwise, I think there should be no problem with this request from the standpoint of the logistics of it. Just we need to make sure we clearly delineate those parcels that we don't own.
For sure.
Okay. Any other questions for Abby May? What's the pleasure of the commission? There's a second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for working through. Again, it's exciting to have some neat stuff happening in our city, and I know it takes a lot of work to do that, and so you should be lauded for your efforts. So thank you.
Thank you. We have a good team. We look forward to seeing you at Swale.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, let's move down to, I think we've got somebody in the audience that needs to get out of here a little early. Can we go to item 9 first? Mr. Murphy?
Well, 8 and 9 together.
Oh, 8 and 9 together, okay. That's.
And you can strike 7 anyway, so you're going to 8 and 9 anyway.
Well, there we go. All right.
You can combine 7 with number 12, I guess.
Okay, we'll do that. All right, we'll hit that. That'd be perfect. Well, technically, you're on the agenda first. Okay.
Just quick update for Ohio Street. D&M is continuing to work around the ditch, restore that area. They're going to be there probably, I'd say, for at least the next week or two, getting all that put back together, and then they're going to continue with restoration throughout the site. I guess basically what I'm here for tonight is that change order. Hopefully you guys have a copy of it up there. It's for the additional drainage at the apartments.
That?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty simple.
It's the landscape copy in our
Right,
packets.
okay.
You should receive.
Horizontal, okay,
Yeah.
or landscape.
Yeah, I got that price from D&M. It's to add the additional drainage and under drain and tie that into the current sewer system to alleviate that problem with the water running over the sidewalk.
So does this, the extent of that issue, as you can see, it comes from quite a wide area. This
Sure.
covers that entire area?
It should, yes.
Okay.
There's going to be minimal grading that we can do to get the water to the point where we want it to drain, and then a new manhole will take it out of there. And I think a lot of the cost is dealing with the current situation. It's super wet over there. Like it's going to be difficult to work in, but I think we can get it done.
Yeah, and as I understand it, you also worked, and we appreciate that you worked with D&M to get the cost down as much as possible.
Yes, sir.
But still accomplished the work that needed to be done. So appreciate that. So if so just to be clear, so this is the area that's basically adjacent to and a little south of the Pine Tree Court apartments along Ohio Street, where you see the groundwater. Is it basically
it's
groundwater?
basically groundwater. We do not know a source of it.
Seeping out of the slope, I guess, adjacent to the roadway there, and this project will hopefully alleviate all, if not, or most, if not all, of that issue.
It's not bad now, but like in the winter,
Yeah.
when that water was running, it was building up 2 inches of ice over the
Well, and
sidewalk.
it was icing over the sidewalk, so it was definitely a problem. So I've discussed this with Richie prior to the meeting, and I would recommend approval of the request as presented.
Great. All right, any questions for Rich? What's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? I'll just add a little bit here. I think this is a modest spend. It's $18,830.56, I guess. But, it was brought to our attention several times.
Yep.
Water issues in this area.
Yep.
We promised the community that we were going to work our way through these things as they came up with good engineering expertise and people that can follow through and deliver on what the engineers designed. So looking forward to some solutions down there. And I'm just pleased that we can have this as part of our project to get.
Well, and it is, just to be clear, this is going to be paid out of bond funds. It's outside the scope of the project, but it's going to be paid out of bond funds. And we intend to do some other substantial improvements to stormwater and drainage adjacent to the Ohio Street project with some of the remaining funds. So it definitely falls within the intention of the use of the Ohio Street bond funds.
Should continue to help improve property values in that area also, plus the access to the hospital and everything else. So, okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Just so everybody knows, Reith Riley will be on site tomorrow adjusting some of those castings in.
Yeah, I was going to
driving
say
lane.
that this is the manhole lineup.
Yep.
And we're going to do something with that so it's not boom, 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 right?
You're still going to notice driving over a casting, but they're going to adjust those things starting tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just to kind of build on what I was saying regarding some improvements we plan on making within the Southgate neighborhood, I thought I saw Mr. Cuss earlier, but I do see Mr. Gorsuch in the audience. We do intend to work with, I believe, Hassan Associates as well as Global Engineering on some additional improvements to stormwater drainage and road reconstruction in the Southgate neighborhood with the remaining bond funds that are left over from the Ohio Street bond. So just wanted to make mention of that. We'll be dealing with the approvals regarding those, I think, relatively soon. And but that's just builds on what I was just saying with regard to the basis for why it was okay to do these improvements to deal with the groundwater issue.
Wonderful. Glad we're able to do it. So, all right, Mr. Murphy, item 9, US 12 bridge over Trail Creek.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Chris Murphy with Structure Point. Two items I want to discuss with you this evening. The first is NDOT has drafted an agreement that Structure Point has reviewed. It's an interagency agreement between the City of Michigan City and NDOT with regard to the costs and the maintenance responsibilities involved by those elements of the Trail Creek bridge replacement project that are determined needed by the city, and the city will agree to maintenance of those special elements for aesthetic purposes as part of the standard understanding with NDOT in these type of projects. Structure Point has reviewed that agreement. We have forwarded it to Craig for distribution. We believe it's typical of NDOT standard agreements for these type of projects, and we recommend the agreement for approval. The cost for the elements of the project, primarily two elements, the pedestrian railing on either side of the bridge and the decorative lights both on the bridge and replacing the standard NDOT lights on the approaches to the bridge. Those two elements are estimated by NDOT to be approximately $428,240. We did have opportunity to question NDOT on a couple of those pay items, particularly with regard to the cost of standard NDOT lighting if NDOT would replace it. And there would be just a difference in the decorative lighting with the NDOT lighting. NDOT responded that if they were doing the project as a standard NDOT bridge replacement project, they would not be replacing their standard lights. Therefore, there is no gap to fill there, so that the decorative lights pay items also include a cost for removing the existing standard NDOT lighting that would not have to be removed if it wasn't for the decorative lighting that we're installing. So all that seemed appropriate as far as Structure Point's experience in these type of projects. So I would recommend that agreement for approval as it comes to your attention for.
I think I've seen that. Alan, have you seen that?
It's actually approved by the Board of Works.
Okay.
And it was approved I believe it was approved at the last Board of Works meeting because it's an agreement with the city for maintenance. You're talking about the MOA?
Right.
We're talking about the MOA agreement?
Right.
Yeah, I believe it was approved at the last Board of Works meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And they will forward it on to NDOT, the signed copy on to NDOT, I believe.
Okay.
I'll follow up on that, but I believe that was already done. So, and I based that on the conversations we had with you and Mr. Anderson regarding the review of that document. So
great.
This is the same way that the US 421-94 overpass project was handled. It was an agreement with the city, not the redevelopment specifically, redevelopment commission specifically. So, I wanted to. I was just going to ask you about an element of that, and I think that even though NDOT is not participating in any of the costs associated with the lighting, they were participating pretty substantially by paying for the full railing on the inside to separate the pedestrian space from the drive space.
My question. So
that offsets the project cost significantly. So I think it more than makes up for the difference of what they would have put towards the lighting had they put the portion that they would have put into a lighting.
So NDOT's covering the interior, either 2 or 3 bar railing with an 18-inch concrete base kind of thing.
Correct.
They've agreed to pay that whole cost.
They've agreed to pay that whole cost, including the texture finish to the concrete.
I think we come out a lot better having gone that direction than we would have if we would have had them participate in a portion of the lighting.
Correct.
So, and just let me ask a question on the 428. I mean, you were kind enough to hand out a number of nice designs.
Yes.
I'm assuming that these designs are on top of the 428?
Those would be a change order if we decided to modify. We would have to do that as a change order in the process, which is not unusual. But we would just make that we'll make a decision with regard to that, and then if we decide we want to augment the design that's already been approved by NDOT, then we would just do it as a change order.
Right. So what we're getting for the 428 is our decorative lighting,
correct,
and a no frills pedestrian railing. Looks nice, but no frills, right?
Right. Correct.
Good.
And your decorative lighting is not only located on the bridge, but it replaces the lighting on the approaches from generally Michigan Boulevard to the casino entrance.
Right.
Nice.
Generally.
Nice. Okay. So any approvals for this evening on this, or just this stuff's for our information right now?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, we just received this. So.
Right. I've collected a few samples, both of bolt-on type of elements that you can consider, which would be a lesser cost alternative to adding a decorative element to the railing. As you can see in there, there's also a panel decorative element that is used in some locations where the existing railing can be built with a frame installed, and then a decorative element that would still have to meet pedestrian railing spacing requirements to some extent, can be bolted inside the frame that's left in the opening of the standard railing panel.
So how how would you suggest we go about making a decision relative to the decorative railing? I mean, what do you want to propose things to us, or Craig, is this something your office wants to look into? Or how do
Well, I'll start by talking to Robert Anderson within Chris's office about whether or not we have options beyond just these. If there's a library of options available beyond just these, I think these are just to give us an example of the types of
Exactly.
the types of
Installation.
ways in which the decoration can be accomplished. But this is by no means the list of options that we have, or the designs that we have.
No, those are just
at our
samples of
disposal.
how elements can be added.
So I think
to the
what I'll do
railing
is I
structure.
would prefer to probably just work with Robert Anderson from Structure Point to come up with some ideas. But if you want to give some guidance as to the general method by which you want to try to accomplish the decorative,
I mean,
whether it's an attachment or it's integrated railing or it's
my sense is we'll have others want to have some input on this, but one of the things that I'm looking at here seems to be a nice decorative design, but also something that could be accomplished relatively easy is the insert square, if you will. So you have the railings going along, and every so often you have an insert. It's not clipped on. It actually looks like it's
Right,
bolted in.
it's part of the railing
so you can
structure.
put something. I mean, that may be.
well, and the idea would be that
You know,
the idea with it, I think, with this is cost is a factor. Obviously,
Sure.
with regard to this project, is not every section of railing would be decorative.
Right.
We could every so often basically have a decorative panel or
nice.
stretch, if you will. I think this was just to get the conversation going.
Correct, so that you had some idea of how elements can be added to the railing.
Sure.
And I do want to note, and it may be hard to see from here, but the standard railing element is a series of horizontal bars spaced 6 inches apart.
Yeah.
And there'll be the top railing and then 6 intermediate bars down to the concrete of the coping.
Because most of these are vertical. So this
That's
isn't gonna be
correct. That's
vertical.
why I wanted to, as you think about what element you think works best, just keep in mind you have horizontal bars in this railing, not the vertical bars.
And there is, I wasn't trying to overly complicate things, but it will be relatively easy to see between the rails that separate the cars and the rails on the pedestrian side. So there will be angles there where it's not going to just block each other.
Right. Correct.
Right.
Correct. So I would suggest you think about a particular style that you like, and then we can start thinking about what an actual decorative element
Sure.
works best for the community. Is it something along the lines of an identifier, a city logo, or something of that nature, or is it
Nautical
something more
or-
stylized, similar to what you have down at the interchange bridge, showing the characteristics, the
I select
context of the
poker chip
community.
myself, so
Oh, jeez.
or the
So yeah, this is just for your ideas on keeping things moving ahead.
So fellow commissioners, if you have ideas, let's just get together and bring them up on how we go about this, and we're looking for some more progress. So, and by the way, the 428 sounds like a very good number, because I don't know what the decorative panels are going to be, but I think our original estimate with this was 800 to $1.2 million.
Correct, and that was,
400,000 sounds pretty good to me.
and I want to
Well,
remind
that was
commissioners-
also when we had to do surgical removal of the
Correct.
existing railing and surgical replacement of the existing. There were a lot of extra costs
Sure.
associated with the method in which the repair was going to take place. It was
Correct.
far costlier because a lot of work was going to have to be done by hand.
Right.
And
So much of the savings results in NDOT's change in scope from a bridge deck overlay rehab type of project, which threw a lot of the concrete railing costs to the city.
Right.
Now that they've scoped it as a bridge replacement, they're replacing the railing either way. So
Sounds
that's
to me
why
like
they
you're
were.
suggesting things are going our way. It's kind of
Well, so far so good. So that poker chip may not be far off, right? I do want to note that 428 is based on unit prices that NDOT provides for estimating purposes. The actual value will depend on the bid prices bid by the contractor.
Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you. Good work. All right, item 10, Engineers Council. Mr. Phillips, and I think you mentioned another item too, right? No, you're talking about 11. Okay,
No,
let's
so
do item 10.
with regard to item 10,
Yeah.
Greg Keel from Keel Architecture is here with us this evening to give us an update and I believe wrap up the project. We're pretty close to wrapping up the full cost of the project, I believe.
We are,
But I'll
actually.
turn it over to Greg and he'll give us an update on the project and what if anything is remaining to be done with the project.
Commission members, Greg Keel with Keel Architecture, and I am here to recommend that the final retainage be paid. I forwarded that this afternoon, was out last week with.
So that'll be on our next claims docket.
Yep.
Okay.
And Larson Danielson was a contractor. Their team and subcontracting team did a fantastic job on the project. The project did come in at budget without any additional change orders. What was wonderful was that we did have some scope that was credited back once we got into the upper parapets. We didn't need to do the extensive rebuilding for as much as we initially figured. And once they got into it, we were able to do tuck pointing for not all of it, but a portion of it. We did have to rebuild some sections. That credited money provided us a bit of a contingency surplus, and we were able to do the remaining interior animal exhibits and some upgrades that Jamie Huss, the director, and the zookeeper staff had requested. We had an alternate for that. That with the base was a little high, and so we didn't take it initially, but as we got into it, the Larson Danielson team identified that credit, then with Superintendent Kynitz's direction, was able to apply that. So when I was out last week, I did bring my professional photographer. We've got some photographs. I'll be forwarding those to Craig and Jeremy for sharing with the city's website. But we're excited to report that the project is complete and be able to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions, comments? Well, it's nice to see a project come in on budget. The other thing to emphasize here too, this is the third of our WPA projects.
Second
WPA project. So I continue to get a lot of nice compliments on the greenhouse work, and I'm sure this will be a nice plus to that too. So
yeah, I think the nature of that WPA work really is it's scattered around Washington Park, and in the zoo, it's one of the most popular exhibits because it's small animals, and the environments for the critters that are now housed back in there. They've been in there about a month. They seem to be enjoying it.
yeah, do you have any kind of survey from the animals?
We did. I'll send a couple photographs to you, Craig, of the foxes. They were sleeping pretty much the whole time, other than when there's a little bit of movement. The turtle thought it was feeding time. When I walked by, I could tell it was up at the edge of the water. And then the zookeeper came in, and then it was clear it was feeding time. I think there's a number of birds and reptiles as well. So it's a really good fit overall, and it continues the use of what the original building was intended to be used for, which is exhibits as sort of feature in the zoo.
Exciting. Thanks for your good work. And if there's any other comments, questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks
I
very
appreciate
much.
it. Thank you. All right, now let me get back to Craig. So, two items, I guess, number 12 and number 8, right? No, 12 and
11. No, don't skip 11.
Okay, I won't skip 11. Well, I'm having trouble tonight. So 11. Okay.
So we can combine 11 and 14.
All right.
Since
All right,
Tim
thanks.
Haas will
That's
be
okay.
representing both of those.
All right.
The next thing would be the US 421 streetscape and pedestrian improvements
Thank you.
update.
Good afternoon, Tim Haas. Regarding the 421 corridor plan that was a result of the South Gateway plan, we met with Craig, and I don't recall everybody else who was there, but with a few representatives of INDOT in, I think, November of 2016 to talk about the city's intention to move forward with making pedestrian improvements and also aesthetic improvements along the 421 corridor from basically 400 North to maybe St. John Road, possibly all the way up to Cool Spring, but definitely to the St. John Road area. That master plan for the South Gateway corridor included many other things along Highway 20, The things I've mentioned along Highway 421, pedestrian improvements is one of the main goals of the project, limiting the number of driveways because of all the excess traffic on 421 due to the fact that there's no frontage roads or not a well-defined frontage road system or continuous frontage roads. So anyway, we met with INDOT back in 2016 to talk about this project. And I'm sorry, I'm thinking of a different meeting. This actually was last year. Yeah, what happened on this project was last year. We collectively became aware that INDOT was intending to do a maintenance project, preventive maintenance project on 421 from 400 North to at least Highway 20. And they were going to mill and pave, or I should say they are going to mill and pave that section of Highway 421. I've not heard anything different about that project.
Which is, I believe, next year, if I'm not mistaken.
At the time we met with them last year, it was going to be this year. So I don't know if it's been bumped back a year by INDOT.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to find out the status of that from INDOT.
At the time we met with them, I think it was maybe in July of last year or so. They were going to have that project, which is a separate project, not under the Redevelopment Commission. They were going to have a letting date in October of 2018 with construction starting in the spring of 2019. Now, I haven't heard anything about it since then, and I think that would be something you'd hear about if that, in fact, were the schedule.
I don't believe we haven't heard anything, but we can reach out to them and find out what the status of that is.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's going to impact what he's talking about, right?
Yeah, we're also curious because US 20 east of 421 is going to be under construction this year too, so it'd be nice to understand, their maintenance of traffic model and things like that for those projects.
I wouldn't be surprised if because of the Highway 20 project that they pushed back this project, just because they're in such close proximity, 421 and 20.
We'll reach out to them and we'll find out what the status of that is.
So we met with INDOT last year then to talk about, once we found out that they were intending to mill and repave that section of 421, we met with them to talk about what the city's project with the South Corridor Gateway Plan and see if there was any way to, take advantage of those two projects working together. Ultimately, INDOT decided that is not anything they were interested in doing. It would have been difficult to accomplish the engineering and design necessary in time for the letting,
as I recall, was the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, that was one reason, and another reason was just the uncertainty of the schedule of both projects in the future and making them dovetail together. So that's really about the last thing that's happened with that project that I'm aware of. INDOT closed it up with an email, said, thank you for the interest. We're not interested in doing this project. As part of the paving project, we'll look at your project as a separate project. Your Michigan City's project is a separate project. And when you're ready to talk with us about it, contact us and we'll give you, we'll start the coordination process and give you all the details of what you need to do to get started on the project on 421.
And just to be clear, the project that we discussed with them incorporated sidewalks on at least one side of the road. I can't remember if it was both sides of the road off the top of my head, but it also would basically be restriping 421 south of 20 down to 400 north, as well as probably a removal of some pavement in order to make the sidewalk possible, as I recall, through that stretch. And so we would definitely have to look at doing it as a separate project. And it would be important to note that the repaving work that's being done won't be too much of a detriment to our project, because at most our project would result in restriping and the removal of some pavement on the side of the road. So until that project happens, basically we'll have a fresh new coat of asphalt on the highway. So it's not like, it wasn't too much of a problem for us to do our project separately, because it doesn't really impact the project that they were going to do anyway that much. It lets us move forward with our project when we're ready to do that separately.
So that's where I was trying to get to, because I think the curiosity is
restarting.
When we start on.
Well, so like we said, we met with them last year and we had to find out whether or not we could dovetail into the project they were already doing. We found out that wasn't possible, and that was, I believe, a little bit later in the year. But we can restart the conversations with NDOT about the project that we intend to do in that area.
Right.
And it's going to take some time for us to negotiate that with NDOT. So it's obviously these sorts of discussions with NDOT take time. So I think what you're looking for from us is to continue those conversations.
Well, for sure. So, I mean, it sounds to me like this is more and more of probably a 2020 project, or maybe even 2021.
I would say more like 2021.
So
if we start now.
Yeah. Well, that's the only way to get things started. You start, right?
Right. Yeah.
All right. So
but the first hurdle was, is NDOT willing to consider doing the project? As part of theirs, we found out that wasn't possible, but they didn't close the door on the idea of us doing our own project separately. And at least
that doesn't part of our project require some narrowing of.
Yes, that's what I was trying to explain.
Okay, thank you.
Removal of pavement and some narrowing of lanes. So the lanes in some cases are as wide as 16 feet. And so
the center turn lane in particular.
Yeah, there's some wiggle room there to narrow lanes and
so when
still maintain safety.
So when they grind and resurface, will they be narrowing the street then, or is that a future?
No, they would be. No. We would be doing that in the future with our project.
Okay.
But the area where we would take out the excess pavement based on the narrowing of the lanes would become the area for the sidewalks.
Okay.
Yeah, the South Gateway Corridor Plan recommends reducing the pavement width to 56 feet from the current 65 feet. And thereby using that additional 9 feet for building sidewalks and gaining some room that way. Essentially by narrowing down the center lane. Mostly, but I think also narrowing down the travel lanes from like 12 feet.
Because they vary anywhere between 11 and 15, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
What I like
12 or 15.
Obviously, we're not surprising in that. We do need to, we both need to work together on any narrowing of a major highway. And obviously, I think the community at large would love to see a lot more pedestrian access around the whole city and not just...
Well, the basic conversation started a long time ago when we did the South Corridor Gateway plan. We were working with at the time, the area engineer responsible for this, for this area, just to get an idea of whether NDOT was even willing to discuss the concept of making these kinds of improvements. And at the time they were. And I think that was reinforced through conversations we had last year. And so going forward, we would be basically doing our own separate projects.
Yeah, but they didn't tell you flat out, no, you can't narrow this thing by 9 feet.
They never told us that.
No.
Okay, great.
Yeah, they didn't express any negativity towards the project in general.
Right.
Only towards doing it along with their paving project.
Okay. All right, any other questions or comments? Anything else, Tim?
Yeah, related to that project, I'm a little hesitant to use the phrase, but maybe a low-hanging fruit. Town Center Road extension.
Yeah.
That's also part of the South Gateway Corridor project. And just to bring the commissioners up to date on what's happened in the past with that project, Town Center Road is the north-south road that's located west of Meijer, Lowe's, Menards. It currently dead ends. The intention there was an intention in the past to extend that road all the way down to Walmart's driveway, thereby creating a nice, side road so people who are going from Walmart or to the other shopping complex or vice versa wouldn't have to get back on 421. Well, there's three intermediate. It's about a 500-foot long road extension required to tie into Walmart's drive from the current dead end of Town Center Road. There's three intermediate private property owners, and there's wetlands, and that's what has stopped this project several times in the past over a couple administrations, actually, mayoral administrations. And what happened is one of those properties, the Kankov property, I think it was a mattress store. I'm not sure what's there right now. Possibly a mattress store on the east side of 421. But there's a deed restriction on the wetlands behind that property. And so last year and the year before, working with Craig and the Redevelopment Commission, we met with IDE, Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and Army Corps of Engineers. They oversee the wetland programs, and we met with them couple times to talk about what could be done, if anything, to get this road pushed through, because Michigan City would really like to get this connector road in there and relieve traffic off 421 as part of a corridor plan. And the two gentlemen from those regulating agencies went back and they looked through actually a decade worth of their files. And luckily they both had very good files from back when Walmart was built and back when the Town Center Road was built and things like that. And it took them quite a while, but they came back with an answer and said, yeah, they'd be interested in possibly looking at removing the deed restriction from the Kankop property and placing it on another adjacent wetland property. For instance, maybe
I think it's owned by Walmart Land Corporation or whatever. Well, the Walmart Land Corporation.
Now, we've never contacted them to see if they'd even consider this idea, but just the fact that the regulators were interested in in considering removing or replacing that deed restriction with another was a good sign. So basically, where that was left off at the end of or last year or so was that the next step after they got back to us, the regulators got back to us with all of that information. That they recommended we have another meeting between the regulators and the city, and talk about the deed restrictions and transferring the deed restriction to the adjacent property, hopefully. And then there's another thing that's come up. There's the in lieu fee program for wetland mitigation, which just last year became effective for this part of Indiana. So that might have some bearing on whether or not this project could move forward. Again, it's been stopped basically because of wetlands. There are many other items to consider. I don't think anybody's talked to the property owners about purchase property. So, we've got Kankop property, Chilikin property, and then the southern property has changed hands as of the end of last year to a company, VCF or something like that. I'm not sure. Used to be the Ritchie property. But so there's that project, and it possibly could move forward more quickly than the corridor project on 421.
I guess I would just look, if you want to just authorize us to, Haas and Associates and staff to continue to explore the possibility of that roadway connection and negotiations necessary with property owners and ongoing discussions with regulatory agencies in 2019, then maybe you could just make that.
So how
motion.
just for clarity, how does our contract work with Haas and Associates then? Do they just bill us as we go, or do we need a scope and a...
We have a contract currently with them. If we need to, as we get closer to understanding what that would entail, we can come back and augment that if we need to, but
okay.
We could just further explore those options.
I just want to tie up the details on make sure you get paid and we know what we're paying for. So, okay, so...
Will that road give you access into Lowe's and M&R back too?
Yes. Yeah, essentially it would intersect Walmart Drive before, if you turned off of 421.
But you're on the, I think you're on
You're talking about the road between the two?
Yeah.
Connecting back by the theater?
Yeah.
No,
This is a
but
different road.
that's another interesting discussion to have.
Meyer Drive?
Yeah, the southern extent,
Potential Meyer Drive. Okay.
coming back around by Lowe's and Menards. This project wouldn't do that. This would just connect that whole area to
This is kind of the
Walmart.
area between Sophia's Pancakes and Menards, right? And the road stops
But
to the south.
But the idea of
Yeah.
what you're talking about is also in the corridor plan, and perhaps could be we could be looked into. I'm not sure, why it never happened in the past. You probably better, it would.
Sure.
I don't know what the status of that property is to the. It would be the east of Menards and Lowe's. I believe that was sold. And
Well, we don't have to solve it tonight. I think, you're getting some sentiment from the commission that we want to pursue these things, right? Probably both projects potentially. So just, I think keep working at it and bring it back to us, right?
okay.
Any objection?
And if we need to revisit the contract with Haas, of course, we'll do that.
Okay.
Yeah, both of these projects are strongly recommended in the South Gateway
Oh,
corridor
sure.
plan. And it's to relieve traffic off of 421 and also to provide pedestrian access. It's really terrible pedestrian access down there. I personally have
Well, those two things: access points, as well as alternate access to the properties up and down both sides of 421, and pedestrian improvements. I'd probably probably be safe to say the core element of that study, of the South Gateway Corridor study, aside from the identification of those key redevelopment parcels that were identified as part of the project. So it's always been a major tenet of that project. And just like the on the north end, where we've been systematically carrying out the Lake Michigan Gateway implementation strategy, the South Gateway Corridor study is the equivalent document for the south end for the south end of the city. And the projects like the Ameriplex project and the Ameriplex Drive and those kinds of things are also highly recommended in those in that document. So,
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Haas? Thank you. Good work.
Thank you.
Progress. All right, so
and then Ameriplex, he has Ameriplex Drive as well.
perfect. Let's do that. Item 14.
Regarding the Ameriplex Drive project, that has been delayed since the onset of winter last December. And Walsh and Kelly is the contractor. They informed us today that they have called in for utility locates for next week, which means that they'll be mobilizing back to construction on the site to finish up the project either, say, late next week or the week after that. They don't have a lot of work remaining to get done. They've got sidewalk to build along the south side of Highway 20, and then about 100 feet of sidewalk on Ameriplex Drive, as well as surface asphalt paving, road striping. Both of those are weather dependent, and it's a little too early to do surface paving. But the way things are looking, it won't be that way real soon. And I thought
The lighting's going okay out there? The initial lighting
The
piece?
plants have reopened, as I understand it, correct?
yeah, they're reopened, but surface is the most restrictive temperature.
Right.
Surface asphalt, it needs to be 50 degrees and rising. But the lighting is NIPSCO's installing those lightings under contract directly with the Redevelopment Commission, and we are not sure of their schedule. We've been asking. They did get out there and remove one of the last. Actually, they removed a pole and set a new pole, and that was stopping the completion of a portion of the sidewalk. So now that obstacle is gone. NIPSCO, as far as putting in the 5 street lights, I'm not sure. We're trying to find out their schedule, and just so far haven't gotten a date yet.
I have an important question to ask, and a request, I guess, to ask an approval from the commission with regard to the Ameriplex Drive project. As we all know, the construction project is for the first 600 feet, I believe, and then we've designed to 1,000. Is that correct?
The numbers, they sound a little
Something
bit long.
along those lines?
I think they're both a little shorter than that. I
Okay.
don't recall exactly.
But once you get to the end of the current pavement, the road becomes, in some cases, almost impassable. Would it be possible for you guys to put together some estimates for us to regrade the remainder of Ameriplex Drive and, if necessary, do a change order to get out there pretty quickly and hopefully regrade and put in some additional gravel or whatever we need to do?
Yeah, just dress up the gravel
The
drive.
potholes that have been created over the winter are making parts
So
of
you're
it.
not talking about paving as far as.
No, just to make the road passable because it is our ownership all the way to the south end
Sure.
of the drive. So, would ask if you could put together an estimate for us on
Sure.
what a change order would be for us to regrade and fill that so it's in much better condition than it's in today.
Will do.
All right, other questions on Ameriplex Drive? All right.
Thank you.
Very much, Tim. It's much appreciated. All right, now let me back up here
So number
because I think
12.
we need 7 and 12 hit.
Yep,
somehow
so
here.
12. Yep.
Okay, item 12.
709 Franklin Street.
Commissioners. John Blasky with Americal Engineering and Steve Travis here, my associate. So we prepared bid specifications, quotations for the demolition of 709 Franklin Street. And 4 contractors were invited, contractors that are usually put in proposals with the city. And only one submitted a proposal. I called 2 of them. I called all 3 of them, but 2 of them replied, which was Schaffner and G.E. Marshall, and they said they were just too busy to spend the time to bid on this project. It's a small project. Pavey did not respond at all. He was at the site visit. So one contractor did, and they were within our budget that we estimated on the project, and that was Acton. So I'm recommending that you award the work to Acton in the amount of $117,053. I do want to say that that does include some allowances. Currently, the city uses a company, PRS Lawn Care, and so we have an allowance in that as well for them to establish the turf and then maintain it on the site there.
I think one of the issues that
So
brings
he's-
up, go ahead.
I was gonna say, John worked closely with Dave Delau from PR's Lawn Care to come up with an allowance for basically re-establishing the grass on the site after the project is complete for both the area where the demolition is occurring and regrading the property where 701 to 705 was located. 701 to 705 Franklin was located because there was some ponding, some pretty severe ponding last year and earlier this year, and we felt it was just best to have Dave Delau and Paul Ritchie from PRs come up with the method to reestablish that because they're the ones who maintain it for us anyway, and so we just decided to go with an allowance based on that.
So is that in here?
That's the yeah. So the allowance number 3.
Okay.
And then
So that is, allowance for 3 is kind of 701 to 705, not just
That's
709.
both.
that's correct,
That's-
701 to 709.
It's all.
Okay,
It's all of it.
okay, all 3 of them.
It's
Okay,
all of it.
yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then the contractors also voiced opinion on demolition contractor salvaging stone. So we contacted Dutcher Construction, who has salvaged stone before for the city, and they gave us an allowance of $14,500 to salvage the whole top.
So where it says Grant Building,
Right. that'll be-
and then the side, just the thin kind of sides,
they
the stone
wanted
on the sides.
whole, what
They
we
didn't want-
put in
okay.
there was, I mean, we could adjust this because it's an allowance.
Okay.
But-
So they worked with Greg Deutscher pretty closely on coming up with an allowance for that, and much the same as what we did on 701 to 705. We plan to salvage the historic elements of this building to be reused, hopefully within the Central Plaza project.
So, and the other sensitivity, at least I have anyway, is this a shared wall with 7-Eleven or not?
It is not.
It
We
is not.
actually, it does not appear to be, but just to verify, we went out there. I didn't go out there. Steve went out there, and Jack
Well, I
went
mean,
a hole
you know,
in the wall, and we see a separate wall in there.
It took him a while
Yeah.
to do that.
Thick wall.
Obviously, we had a couple issues with a
3
neighbor
courses
last
of-
go around, right?
So there are 3 courses of brick that are specific to this building and are separate from the building adjacent.
Okay.
So it is.
Obviously, we want to minimize our liability
Right.
relative to
Right.
And then,
neighbors.
thirdly, we had Marquee Electric out to give us a price on. There's one ornamental street light. When we demolished the other buildings in that area, we had them take the light down, store it, and then bring it back. And that's actually came in about half. We put a $3,000 allowance in, and they were at $1,572. So that'll be deducted out of this contract.
Nice.
And then one last thing with that stone, the architects wanted basically from where the top of the transite was all the way to the top and the width. So
Mhm.
if you don't need that much, that'll
No,
just
no.
be deducted.
What I meant by the little sides was the sides going down to the base. I wasn't sure if they were preserving any of that or not. There's
It was
just a
basically
thin strip of the stone that went down on both sides of the facade below that point.
If I remember correctly, it was just the top.
From that point,
like the
okay.
top 6 feet, I believe it was. All the way
Okay,
across.
okay.
So you'll work through that detail.
And we will.
I think we're on the same page. I just might be saying it
Close
differently.
enough.
So they worked pretty closely with Greg Deutscher to make sure that was clear, that that's going to be an element that's preserved as part of the demolition.
Okay, so Mr. Phillips, what's your recommendation?
So I also wanted to just point out that I very specifically asked Mr. Blosky to make sure that he documented the conversations he had with the other companies that chose not to submit quotes, to show that we definitely went out of our way to make sure that we had more than one quote on this project, just for the purposes of adhering to the requirements of law with regard to, purchasing policy of the city. And you've done that, and so with that, and based on all the other elements of the project that we've gone through, I think we've taken a pretty careful look at a lot of this. I would recommend approval of the contract for the project to Acton Contracting LLC.
Okay.
So just the 117 plus the 4,500 for the underground tank?
No, there was an area in the back that it's like the asphalt was cut out where the building may have had it was a coal chute originally, and then now it was natural gas, and we're thinking in between there might have been heating oil tank. So I asked for a price on that just in case when they're ripping up the asphalt. We find it, we know what it's going to cost. We don't have to include that. We could if you want and deduct it as a change order later as a deduction, or we could do.
Maybe we're better off just in case, including it as a. I'm glad you mentioned it. So maybe we're better off actually just including it as an element of the project now and deducting it later if it's not necessary. That way we're covered, and we don't have to have a special meeting to cover that if it becomes an issue.
It'll be just right. It'll just be a deduction later.
So
that would bring the total to 121,553.
I'd move to approve that.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And just real quick, John, could you give us an idea of what we expect in terms of schedule on this, based on this?
Yeah, I'll notify them tomorrow. I'll prepare an agreement and get it over to you probably by the end of this week. Today's Monday. In the next couple of days, I'll get that to you. And
So we're talking a month or two, not 6 months.
No, within 1 month they should be demolishing that building.
Because we have the 10-day requirement for IDEM that we have to handle, but we should be, more than likely, we should be under construction, or under demolition by either late this month or early May.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
By the
We don't
first
have
week
an
of May.
historic building review with this.
That's already been done, and that approval's already been granted.
All right.
So,
All right. I think you get your orders.
All right.
Thank you
We'll
very
give
much.
an update.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a good
Thank you. And you had another item on number 7, Greg, right?
yeah, but I think there's really nothing more to report other than this at this time, so
Okay.
that's, yeah.
All right. So let's go to, I see Jay's here
Jay, you
now.
arrive, yep.
So item 13.
You have good timing.
It's your lucky day. Yeah.
Okay, hi, I'm Jay, SEH. We're on the item with respect to change orders number 1 and 2 for the Washington Park project. Change order number 1 was for changes, quantity adjustments in the amount of about $4,000. And change order number 2 was for the landscaping. The landscaping that we previously removed last fall. With respect to the landscaping, we did reach out to both of the general contractors and asked them if they would like to provide a bid on that work. Only one responded in a positive manner, which was Gary at Reach Raleigh passed.
So just to be clear, Jay, the difference between the additions and the deletions comes out to the 4,000.
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Okay, that's where you come up with that number.
Yes,
because we add $12,000 or $17,000 worth, $17,252.61, but we're deducting $12,470.
yes, sir. That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So I would suggest we handle these two separately.
Right.
So I would suggest you handle number 1 first, and then we can answer any questions related to that one.
So the first one is kind of it's just a
Some minor adjustments.
relative to concrete, aggregate,
yeah.
and pavers, right?
Yeah. Just as you get into a project, sometimes you have to adjust, adjust items a little bit.
And there were offsets because we need less copper. Looks like.
Yes.
And
Yes.
conduit.
Yep.
So it's for $4,782.61 on top of the contract, right?
Yep.
All right. So what's the pleasure of the commission? Or do you have questions?
Approve change order 1.
Moved and seconded. So change order the amount of $4,782.61. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So that brings the total contract price was then $697,250.61 after the adjustment.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, so let's go over change order number 2.
Okay, change order 2, as I explained, was to bring back into the contract the landscaping for the project. We have previously removed it last fall. As I previously mentioned, we asked both contractors, Reach Farley and Gary Up, to submit a quote or a bid. And Gary Up was the only contractor that...
As I recall, we had submitted it, we had it in the bid packet as an alternate, and we chose not to award the alternate.
We had the maintenance bond for the work as an alternate.
Oh, okay.
We decided not to go with the alternate.
Right.
The original work was in the contract, but there was no agreement signed by any parties until after we talked with Gary Up and we asked them to remove the landscaping before we signed the agreement. That's how it went.
Okay, I knew there was an adjustment in there.
Yeah.
I couldn't remember exactly how we went about that.
Yeah, sometimes I get confused myself.
Where we got in trouble on, or not, we didn't get in trouble, where the contractors got in trouble in response, what's on, where we had the original bid, and during the mandatory bid conference, we asked them specifically put in there the maintenance, or the landscaping, and included within the regular landscaping was for 1 year as part of the regular landscaping, and that was included, or that was assumed, I guess, as part of the requirement for the landscaping aspect of the project. There was also requested in the notice to bidders for a maintenance agreement for 2 years beyond the original 1 year and beyond the completion of the project. The 2 contractors who submitted bids did not put that in there. So what we did back at the October 9th meeting was we just took the whole landscaping aspect of the project out with the idea that we would come back in the springtime and just reintroduce this. Well, and Jay got us crosswise again because we have certain things that need to be planted when the ground is still semi-frozen. So suddenly we couldn't wait until the springtime. And so when we had to go back to the original bid packet, and that is when Jay and I talked great at length to how to get out of this somewhat difficult situation, as well as be sensitive to the idea of either we're going to plant these things now or we're not going to plant these things until next fall. So that's where we came up with this, where Jay made a specific request of both contractors for reintroducing the landscape aspect again, as well as the maintenance that goes along with that. Gary Up is the only one who submitted the bid on that, so that's what's that's what's in front of you tonight. But I want to ask you about the second part then, is that we've talked about
Maintenance.
is as it relates to the maintenance. We know that, first of all, let's confirm that Gary Up's landscaping bid includes 1 year of maintenance, and as is traditionally or industry practice.
Yes, let's back up a couple steps. The original bid specifications had qualifications for the marram grass, which called the contractor to provide a 2-year maintenance and warranty agreement on the marram grass. It's a separate specification. The second specification in the spec book is for all the general landscaping on the job. That general landscaping specification had only a 1-year warranty and maintenance agreement with it. And it still does to this day. I'm going to back up a couple more steps. The price that we received from Gary Up for the landscaping is exactly what they provided last fall. So they did not increase their price. I just wanted to get that out there. Now, what we have asked Gary Up's landscaping contractor to do, and I can go back to the bond issue if you want me to later, but just moving forward, what we asked Gary Up's landscaping contractor to do was provide us with an estimate for an additional 1 year for the general landscaping part of the project. They're working on that now. I have not received it. So,
Okay,
Mayor,
go ahead.
their original bid had in it, their maintenance bond had $30,000 for a 2-year maintenance, extended maintenance
Of the Merriam grass or the overall?
of the overall.
So what's in the 104? Is it 2 year or not?
The $104,000 contains 2 years on the Merriam grass and 1 year on the general landscaping that you see in that bid form.
So the potential for us tonight is to approve this with the 2 year Merriam and the 1 year general, and then come back at us for a 2nd year.
Yes,
maintenance.
if you so
Yeah, but that's
choose.
the problem, though.
That's
why I was
That's
hoping
probably
we'd be able to do this. We
by
talked about
statute,
trying to be able to get that all in there at once, so we could then consider this to be part of the overall project, and then and which is the way we originally bid it, you know, and that the service agreement, maintenance agreement would be part of that, and so therefore we're not entering into a separate maintenance agreement upon completion.
Right, which is standard with our projects.
Yeah, and that's a problem. When do you anticipate getting that?
I should have had it already. I don't know why I don't. I'm gonna call them tomorrow, make sure I get the quote.
So
So it's not gonna be a bond, it's just gonna be an amount. But it'll be an
Right,
amount
but-
in addition to the 104.
the frozen ground challenge was the other piece, is right? You need to plant this grass. Right
Do we
now.
have do you have a ballpark estimate of how much we think that would cost?
My guess is gonna be about 12,000.
So if we were to increase the amount to exceed, to perhaps 120, that we should probably cover, we should be able to cover that?
Yes,
That probably would be the route to go tonight.
most
Yeah.
definitely.
And then if we have to adjust that later by, change order, then we're better off that way.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. And Mr. President, just to
So
answer your question.
what the estimate for the 120 would be 2 years on the Merriam and 2 years on the general, both
Yes,
maintenance. Okay.
yes. And
Does
you
everybody
have-
understand that? I don't understand the sensitivity of Merriam grass, but obviously.
Merriam grass is sensitive. It requires specific methods of maintenance to get it established properly. But once it's established, it's very hardy. But yeah, the key is just getting it established, and for 2, and it's the 2 year.
That's exactly right. And with the landscaping itself, Alan mentioned about getting slushers to.
And Merriam grass is beach grass, by
Yes,
the
get
way.
this-
It's the name for beach grass.
Yes, it is. To get this stuff ordered quickly, Slussers went ahead and ordered it ahead of time. Just so you know, because we needed to get the Merriam grass in, and the bluebells, which are these specific plants that are called for in this plantings, have to be grown to 1 gallon size. So if they didn't start them right away, order them, start them right away, they would never be the size that we need to get into this project by the middle of June when it's going to be completed.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so we have a request for 120,000, which includes the 2 years and 2 years, as well as all of the materials to be planted, and within the time frame that they're expecting to be successful.
Yes, sir. That's absolutely correct.
What's the pleasure of the commission? Or do you have a question relative to what we're doing?
I'm comfortable. I'll move to approve.
I see Commissioner Oberle's been making all the motions, so it's looking for somebody else to step up here. I'll second.
But I mean, so it's just not, so 104,000, but not to exceed 120,000?
Just
Yes.
just to be able to have the flexibility we need for that Merriam grass, but it can also
Well, not
be
the Merriam, the general.
The motion is
probably an additional year of the
120,000.
general,
Yeah.
but it can be deducted later on through change order if we don't need that much.
But I would say that the motion is really for the landscaping aspect of this project as it was originally bid, and I think that's probably the
That's part of the
safest way to
overall
do it.
package of this
As
project.
part of the overall package for a total cost not to exceed 120,000.
So, I think we all understand that. So, any other questions or comments? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Just want to say it's looking really good.
Yeah, it looks great.
And once we get the landscaping in, it'll look really good.
That's phenomenal.
But the pavers probably going down in the next few
They
days.
showed up today,
Yeah, and
so they'll be on. Yeah.
so you'll start to see it really transform here.
It's a very nice addition. Looks beautiful.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good work.
Oh, one other thing I just want to mention. I did speak with Tim Frame from the Port Authority, and we were talking about maintenance issues, but I've got an ongoing conversation with him right now about what quite possibly his department could do or could not do. We didn't come to any conclusion right now, but unfortunately didn't have a monthly progress report for you today. I got kind of busy, but I apologize for it, but I'll have one next time and we can talk about it.
Sounds great.
Okay?
Thanks.
All right, you're more than welcome.
Good one. All right, good work. Okay, so item number 15. Mr. Phillips and Mr. Saranac. Approval of
Okay,
purchasing right away.
So, as part of the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 project, it's necessary to purchase a few parcels, basically for the location of the trail, as well as a little bit of residual left over between the location of the trail and the Trail Creek itself. The request before you tonight is the approval that was in the claims docket, which was for $12,100 for purchase of a parcel that would transfer to us from RG Development of MC LLC, and that's the property I mentioned before that's immediately behind Van Air on Highway 12. We will be coming to you with 2 more parcels, but we just need to finalize the absolute numbers on those. We're working with our right-of-way acquisition specialist to do those, but tonight we need to approve that amount for.
So we didn't approve this at a previous meeting.
No,
It is in the claims docket tonight.
It's always been our intention, and we were aware that we were going to need to purchase some small parcels in order to make the trail right-of-way necessary. To complete the trail. And this is one of those. We anticipate there are 2 more of those. They're all small parcels. They're all very small parcels. And so I would request the approval of the purchase for amount shown, which was where is it? I believe it's the $12,100.
Right.
For that, I just lost my claims docket. I just wanted to verify that was the amount. And this has been reviewed and recommended for approval by our city attorney as well.
Right.
So it was $12,120 for approval of parcel 7 of the Singing Sands Trail Phase 2 project.
Okay, so we previously approved this on our claims docket. Now we're going to officially approve that we're going to do it. So, have a motion. Is there a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Okay. So now this is a fun item. Number 16, facade and upper story program expansion.
All right, so this is something we've been talking about for quite some time as well as a commission. We originally established a facade program back in, I want to say it was 2013, roughly. And at that time, the boundaries of that program were limited to the area bound by 11th Street to the south, Pine Street to the east, 4th Street to the north, and Wabash Street to the west. Basically, essentially the core of the Uptown Arts District, if you will. But the boundaries of the North TIF District extend well beyond that, and it's come to our attention that there have been a number of property owners over the years that have shown an interest in reinvesting in their properties and improving their facades that are located within the TIF district. And we were not able to enter those requests unless we were to basically modify our rules or reconsider the boundaries. So like I said, we've been discussing this for quite some time. So what I've done is I put together a map that reflects basically the areas, the commercial areas, if you will, with a few exceptions of some houses on major corridors like Michigan Boulevard, for example, that could potentially transition if approvals were granted, to do that for, similar to some of the other areas where we see, like, for example, offices go into a residence that are structure originally built as a residence. In addition to that, I'm requesting, because I think we can all agree that the downtown the 2-story commercial or 2 or 3-story type of commercial buildings don't stop at 11th Street in Michigan City. They extend beyond the south boundary of the TIF district, and roughly down to in the area of Barker and Fulton as you go south on Franklin Street. And I think arguably we can say that commercial district is an extension of the downtown of our community. The buildings look very similar to what's downtown. And so what I'd like to propose is, as the map shows, those areas within the TIF district that are commercial or could potentially become used for commercial purposes, as well as that extension of the properties along Franklin Street south to, I believe it's the alley, I'm showing the alleyway here between Barker and Fulton along South Franklin. And arguably the question that's going to be asked of me by Alan is, how does this benefit the North TIF district? And it's the gateway to the North TIF district. And so it's important for the commercial area that is basically the anchor leading into our downtown to also be strong and to offer opportunities to those property owners. There currently are very few resources available aside from small facade grants that are available through the Urban Enterprise Association, for example, or if the City Council were to make other funds available. But we have an opportunity as part of this request to extend this program farther south and offer the same benefit to some of those property owners. So that would be my recommendation. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have based on the proposed boundaries.
Does that suffice your comments, Mr. Cernak? Okay. Comments from the commissioners?
That area hasn't been touched for.
It's
I
badly in need of investment.
I'm right down there, so I think that would be wonderful.
Well, the other piece too is, and I had a couple questions for Craig, the area to the east. It's on the map, includes a number of residential properties also, but
many of those sites are vacant. Many of those parcels are vacant, and many of those homes are vacant. So I honestly see the transition of those most likely to more commercial type of uses over time, as has happened in other parts of the community. And just to be out in front of that and prepared for that in the event that those approvals are granted in the future, whether it's through rezoning some of those properties or there are other approvals granted, then we don't have to come back and try to modify this again.
But our program is for commercial properties.
It is, but this is just
understood.
This is only for commercial properties, but this is just an anticipation of potential changes to that in the future. The city, for example, we acquired a number of parcels over the years through tax sale or other means along that corridor.
Sure.
And so
Let me ask another related question. So would we have to have a separate finding if we wanted to do the upper loft?
I would ask for 2 separate approvals on this.
So this is on the facade?
So this will be it'll be the same area, because the 2 areas, mirror each other now, and I would request that they mirror each other in the future. Because that would allow, basically, again, people who would like to invest in their properties in other parts of the TIF district, as well as that gateway area between 11th Street and halfway between Barker and Fulton, in areas where there currently aren't residential units above some of those shops, to be able to do that and further invest in those properties.
Even though the maps is just facade.
I meant
facade, then we'll take a second.
It's meant to be for both,
gotcha.
and I would ask for you to, I don't know, do you need it to be 2 separate motions? I guess you could probably, since they were established as 2 separate programs. Okay, yeah.
All right, so if I could, what's the pleasure of the commission on expanding the TIF facade program areas outlined in the drawing? Seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Second one is, the same area for our upper story
and just to be clear,
loft program.
Just to be clear, the facade program would have the same. This would have the same standards that are in place for the program. It just changes the geographic boundaries, so it's the same. The commission will pay 60% of the cost of a restoration up to the maximum of $30,000. And similar to the upper story residential program that we have established, we'll pay up to $15,000 per unit that's created, up to 4 units per floor for a property based on, depending on the situation with the particular building. So just to be clear, that's what you would be approving.
So the question is are you willing to do the same thing for the upper story loft program by the same area? seconded to have the upper story loft program area match the TIF facade program expansion. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you.
And just one other thing with regard to that. Previously, in combination with our program, we were happy to have had the generosity of Horizon Bank offering a low interest loan to offset some of the investment that was necessary by the property owner. And I don't know that that program is still available, but I have reached out to representatives from Horizon Bank about revisiting the possibility of continuing that program in the future. So I don't know how much it was utilized, but they said that they would be willing to consider a discussion about offering that again, especially with the expansion. And I mentioned the possible expansion of this area might be an impetus for them to potentially offer that again.
This also helps with the South Shore double track.
And I don't know if there's anybody here from the news dispatch this evening or not, but I'll make sure that we reach out to the news dispatch to get the word out to property owners about the availability of this program.
So on the other piece, just our previous program was a significant success. We had allocated from the commission years ago up to $300,000, excuse me, $300,000 per year for the program. To date, over several years, we've authorized about $350,000, and the match from private property owners has been about $250,000. So in essence, approximately $600,000 of new investment in the facade program area.
Facades in the Uptown Arts District area.
Right. So it's been a nice program, and I can see people fixing their properties. It's making a nice difference. So. All right, item 17, storage agreement.
Excuse me. As part of the double track project, this is one of the preliminary parts of that. We had expressed, the city of Michigan City had expressed a preference to being able to somehow maintain the facade that's currently in place at the NICD building and the NICD 11th Street station. The NICD and all of the relative agencies that are associated with this project were all in agreement with that, but they needed a place for storage. We have the property that's located, the pole barn, I think we created at 824 East 11th Street, certainly has the ability to be able to keep this facade in there for a period of time, depending upon how this project goes. So this agreement is basically, it's for 7 years, and the reason it's at 7 years is because the federal government would not accept any agreement that was less than 7 years. But for our purposes, it really doesn't change that much in terms of what we're going to use that building for. And whether that is longer than 7 years or less than 7 years will depend upon the more significant aspects of the double track project. For example, if the negative side would be the double track project does not end up happening, the contract terminates immediately. If the double track project goes forward and it's going to take longer than 7 years, there's an automatic renewal in this for 1 year that either side can give 30 days notice to terminate without cause. So that's basically what this agreement calls for. I guess the positive side would be, should the project be completed earlier than 7 years, then the contract itself would terminate as well. This has already been approved on the federal side and NICD side. They need approval on our side to go forth with execution, and that's what's before you tonight.
All right, so any questions on the proposal? We talked about this in previous meetings, and this is our cooperative effort with the South Shore and also the preservation of the facade on the old rail station. We do have a piece of property that we acquired and have a place to store this for to continue to be preserved. So, what's the pleasure of the commission?
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? And there's no fee to NICD to do this or anything. Okay. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you. All right. So the next item. This is Mr. Phillips here. Ratification MOU between the RDC and the sanitary district for sewer capacity.
Okay, so what this is ratification of an agreement that was previously discussed with the commission, and given some timing related to the need to get the document approved for closure of the item with the sanitary district and IDEM. Basically, we're looking for ratification of an approval that the Redevelopment Commission previously gave for participation by the Redevelopment Commission financially in an overall north end sewer capacity study, and that was associated with some of the waiver requirements relative to the Pine Street Luxury Apartments project. As part of that, we agreed to pay up to $75,000 towards the cost of that study. We have already paid $24,900 for what was referred to as a flow metering study, which was necessary as a precursor to the remainder of the study, and then that would leave us with an additional $50,100 contribution towards the study. I know that the sanitary district is in the process of finalizing the scope of the study, I believe with Haas and Associates, but we agreed as part of the offset, and one of the options for granting a partial waiver of stormwater standards relative to, as I said, specifically the Pine Street Luxury Apartments project, was this monetary contribution. It's one of the options allowed by the city code for offsetting that impact, I guess, if you will, to the stormwater system. And so I'm just looking for approval, ratification of that approval of the agreement to pay the total $75,000, with the understanding that we've already paid $24,900 of that remaining, so a remaining amount of $50,100 to be paid upon completion of the study.
This is a critical study because as you put more impervious items on land, water has to go someplace, and as you find this routinely in downtown areas, you have to adjust for where the storm is going to go, and you can't store it all on site with basins and things like that. And even in our High Street project, we do have a specifically designed with storm trap to retain some of the water under the building, but we don't have a big retention pond outside. So, and we do expect that there will be other developments in the downtown that are going to need some relief from, or a waiver from the sanitary.
In order for them to consider a waiver, they would have to understand the capacity available to the system in various locations. So, for example, on our adjacent property to the west from City Hall that's owned by the Redevelopment Commission, as well as potentially other sites on the north end, rather than have to go back and kind of recreate this every time, we agreed to participate in an overall study that would be largely paid for by the sanitary district, but our portion would help offset the cost of that, and would assist us in the future in potential redevelopment endeavors as well.
Exactly. It's a pleasure to the commission.
I apologize I didn't bring copies
Motion
of the actual
approved sewer study.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? John, any comments from the public on that? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you. All right. I think I got all the agenda items out of the way. Is there a report by legal counsel?
One last thing, kind of giving you an update on the Trail Creek litigation that seems like it's been going on forever. Where we are at this point is there is court order mediation scheduled for April 23rd. There is also a trial date set for November of later this year. But the idea behind mediation, obviously, is for all the parties to reach agreement, so as we don't end up having to go to trial. In anticipation of that, we have had, over the course of several years, various estimates as to what the remedial damage would be, or the remedial cost would be to Michigan City. And so now that we're a couple of weeks away from mediation, trying to zero in on that, our lead counsel, Todd Reilly, has requested of August MAC a proposal to Again, review old data as well as coupled with new data, specifically as it relates to vapor intrusion events that happened last year. And with that additional information, can we get to a point of where, can we pinpoint even further what we anticipate the remediation would be, the remediation cost would be to the city. August MAC has provided a proposal and a corresponding change order for the cost of $1,000 to do that work for us. So what we'd be seeking tonight is approval for them to go forth with that, and at the cost of $1,000.
Mr. Phillips, you have concurrence with that?
I'm in concurrence with that, yes.
Any questions from the commissioners? What's the pleasure of the commission? Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes. So in essence, this further sort of defines, and it really defines probably a bigger number for the city to go after. That's right. And a bigger and more credible number because of the work done, right? Great. All right, report by director.
Okay, I have a few items that I need to cover. The first one is the commission members received a copy of our annual report from the Planning and Inspection and Redevelopment Department. This will be going out to the public tomorrow via email and made available at request to others as needed. But it's the same report that you receive every year, but I just want you to take a look at that. It brings you up to speed on the status of a lot of our projects. You'll see that there's a lot of work going on both in the past and present, as well as a lot of goals going forward. Like I said, it's the same format in terms of the report that we give every year. I just wanted to make sure that you recognize that you received it. And like I said, we're going to be making it available to the public. There's a list of various boards, commissions, city council that all receive this every year. We also plan on much the same as was done previously with the Economic Development Corporation, as well as the police department and others have done, making a presentation with regard to the report to the city council at an upcoming meeting. Probably preparing a PowerPoint presentation that would basically summarize what's in the report, but a lot of information here, not planning on reading every word to the city council, but anyway, just want to make you aware of that and let the public know that that's available, and we'll be presenting that to the public at a city council meeting in the future. So that was the first thing.
So any questions for Mr. Phillips on this report?
Comment? I just would congratulate you on a very successful year, but not just you, but your staff and all your board members involved. It's a very comprehensive report. You sit here on a regular basis with the things we're working on, and sometimes it all gets kind of cloudy, a little murky, if you will.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to go back and see some of the things that are still out there
Yep.
that you forget, because the two gateway plans are just so massive that it's hard to track all that. I congratulate you on job well done.
Well, thank you. And it also, it's not only just Redevelopment Commission projects and goals, it's also Planning and Inspection Department projects and goals. So it includes the Plan Commission, the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Historic Review Board, the Community Development Block Grant efforts for the city, and going forward it will also include the Lead Safe program updates for the city as well. So our department's responsible for a lot of different things, and we have a lot of different projects going on, and this is the best way we can kind of try to update the public and members of the boards and commissions in the city on what we're working on, much the same as other departments and agencies.
That's an incredible amount of work, and it's made me tired just reading it, so but well done. All right,
So
something else?
the next thing is we received a proposal for the need to do some additional testing in the form and phase 2 environmental site analysis for a property located within the North TIF. The amount that's proposed for that work is not to exceed, I believe it's $18,500 as a part of an ongoing investigation that we've been working on for some time. So I would request approval of that additional phase 2 ESA report, as well as additional testing necessary.
Any questions for Mr. Phillips on that? It's a pleasure of the commission.
Motion to move ahead with it.
Motion approved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you.
And the last thing is just maybe take the opportunity, if we could, just to highlight the News Dispatch article appearing in today's News Dispatch that will come out tomorrow. I don't know if you want to summarize it, since
Sure.
it's, you know.
Well, it's another exciting time, and the headline will be Michigan City Housing Boom Impressive. Home sales and prices have soared over the last 6 years. And if you're ever planning to sell a home in Michigan City, now may be the time. A lot of pent-up demand. There's quotes here from Clarence Hulse, from our Economic Development Corporation, Craig Phillips and myself, and others. I know that part of the genesis of this was some work done by Mike Connor, our local real estate agent, with Allen Landing, providing some information relative to that too. So what I appreciate about particularly this article and the work that was put into doing it is that it kind of further evidence that we're doing the right things here within the city. And, you know, we've got a good working relationship. I see Johnny Stinley there with City Council and the Mayor's Office and our other community departments, as well as the good work done by Mr. Phillips and the Redevelopment Commission. So I hope you're proud of what's going on. I hear a lot of positive comments, and, you know, we welcome other input to make sure that we stay on the right track.
I think that I think one of the key things about that report, and why I'm so excited about it, is it's important to point out that the geographic area that's covered by the report, which was generated by looking at multiple listing service data that's collected by all the realtors around the region, the Northwest Indiana region, and basically it was determined through analysis done by Al Landing of Heritage Appraisal that this is an area that is exclusive of the lakefront. This is the core of Michigan City, and the numbers that are reflected, for example, 49% increase in the resale value of homes over the course of 6 years, is something that should matter to every Michigan City resident, because that's the core of Michigan City. We're not talking about the lakefront. And there's a comment in there that's interesting also. I think it was made that one of the quotes says that this is the first time that we're aware of that the performance of the core of the city has outpaced the lakefront. And so, you know, basically it's just a reinforcement to us that, you know, the things that we're doing, we're often asked, you know, how come we're spending so much effort and energy and time in making improvements to, you know, in particular the north end of the city. This is, you know, there's obviously something going on in the city that's causing this uptick to occur. So, but anyway, we wanted to just point this article out, and it reflects a lot of the work that the Redevelopment Commission is doing.
Jeff Mays, the staff writer from the News Dispatch, put it together for us too. So the other piece that I wanted to mention, unless somebody has more questions for Craig, was also that last week the City Council approved personal property tax abatement for Marbach, and they plan to invest $4 million in Michigan City in our very own Haskell building. It's out on Cleveland Avenue, built by Holiday Properties with us. And, you know, the promise when we built that was that at the ribbon cutting in February of 2018, the promise was that we had hoped to get over 60 new jobs relative to a 64,000 square foot building. So in essence, Holiday uses an average of about one job per 1,000 square feet. So the Marbach alone project was 30 new jobs at over $20 an hour with also a benefits package. So this is, you know, we're trying to do the right stuff. You know, people say that, you know, we're not investing enough to create new jobs. Well, we're creating the opportunity for people to come and invest in our city. And I think that assuming we fill up the remaining 20-25% of that building, we'll probably be looking at doing a second shell building in that area, since this one proved to be successful. You know, certainly met our expectations and probably exceeded our expectations that it's almost full within a year and a half. So any other comments or questions? I've got back to the agenda quickly here. Anything else, Greg? Any comments from the public? See Councilman Stinley.
How you doing tonight, Commission? I just had a couple comments I wanted to point out tonight. I was very pleased with Haas and Associates' report in the redevelopment pursuit. of their open conversations with NDOT and making 421 between 400 and St. John's Road more pedestrian friendly. I can speak for my fellow councilmen on this. This is something that the public continues to reach out to the council to see this happen. So I'm very happy that you addressed this tonight, and also the expansion of Town Center Road and expansion of Meyer Drive. One other thing I'd like to comment to tonight is I'm very happy also to see the expansion of the facade grant go more towards the south. I had many different businesses in that area also call me, so I'm very happy to see the facade grant program extensions their boundaries. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So, and thanks again for the support of the personal property tax abatement for the Marbach project. It's, you know, there's a lot of competitions between cities to get new investment and new projects, and this is a German firm, and, you know, we're lucky to have them here that, you know, they fly back and forth from Germany, and they need to make decisions in a timely basis, and when you have a nice quality building product to offer in the short term that they can move right into, it's a big plus for your community, and I expect to see
well,
more of that type
we've
of
been
work.
passed over a number of times in the past
We didn't have anything.
because we didn't have anything available of that
Right.
quality. So yeah.
All right. Any other comments from the public? Comments from the public? All right. Any other commissioner comments?
I'm gonna repeat it. I'm very happy about the success of the stop program. Got a business down there and people are talking all the time about it, so I'm really glad to see that.
Great. Well, you know, I think we're all trying to pull in the same direction to move the community forward. Goals we're in line with having our goals create the best community for the best future. Yes, exactly. So we don't.
I mean, I get comments all the time about, you know, a real desire to do something with the Midtown area, and recently in some conversations about the expansion that we've been talking about this expansion for a while, and originally, obviously, the conversation was about within the North TIF, and we've had several conversations recently with property owners in the North TIF about expanding the area. Like, I'd really like to do something with my building, but the program's not available to me. And I thought, you know, state law allows us to invest our TIF dollars in areas where we can show a direct impact to the TIF district. And it's clear, you know, that those buildings are an extension of our downtown, and it's very easy to justify the use of those dollars, you know, for that purpose. So.
Exciting times ahead of us. If there aren't any other comments, our next meeting is May 13th. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.